The fire burns low now, but its light is fierce. We have seen the gift awaken, be tested, and expand. But every light casts a shadow, and every dancer grows weary. The final songs are often the truest and the most costly. Draw your mats closest, for I sing of the cost of the dance, where the oracle must learn what she is willing to pay, and what the village must learn to give. Fame, like a fast-growing vine, began to twist around Ibir. More delegations arrived, not just from neighboring villages, but from distant towns. They brought complex problems, disputes over boundaries that rivers had changed, curses from generations past, pleas for rain. Each request was a weight. Amina, now in her mid-20s, performed her dances with impeccable grace. But Tund and the Awo saw the light fading slightly from her eyes. Her laughter by the river with Tund became rarer, shorter. The elders, proud of their oracle's renown, struggled to say no. The village benefited from the gifts and alliances. But the proverb warns, the pitcher that goes too often to the well will break. Amina was that pitcher. After a particularly draining dance to settle a bitter land dispute between two foreign clans, she fell ill for 3 days, burning with fever. Her dreams were a chaotic storm of other people's conflicts. The virtue of balance was being lost. During her fever, the ancestors spoke clearly, not through the Awo, but directly to her. In her delirium, she stood in a barren, gray plain. Before her stood a line of shadowy figures, all the past oracles of the land. One, whose face was kind but weary, stepped forward. "Daughter," the spirit said, its voice like wind over rocks, "you dance for the world. But who dances for you? The gift is a river. If you let everyone draw from it without tending its source, it will run dry, and then be but a memory in the dust. You must build a dam of rest, or you will break." This was not a suggestion, but a command. The guidance was unequivocal. She needed a successor, an apprentice, and she needed seasons of silence to replenish. When she recovered, she told the Awo and elders of this vision. The message humbled them. They had been so focused on the gift's glory, they had neglected its guardian. The search for an apprentice began. Finding an apprentice was not a matter of picking a smart child. The gift was rare. The Awo devised a test of perception. He gathered children who showed unusual empathy or quiet observation. He placed before them 3 covered bowls. One held a live chick, one held smoldering herbs, one held cool river water. "Do not look," he instructed. "Place your hands near and tell me what you feel." Most children guessed based on logic or peeked. One girl, about 8 years old, named Simisola, did something different. She closed her eyes, held her palms over each bowl, and her body subtly moved. A slight recoil from the heat, a gentle sway toward the chick's vibration, a calm settling over the water. She didn't just feel. Her body instinctively interpreted. Amina, watching, saw herself. It was the first sign. Simisola had the physical empathy, the language of the body. Amina's relationship with Tund deepened into a quiet, steady partnership. He built a small, secluded hut for her by a bend in the river, away from the constant eyes of the village, a sanctuary. Here, she taught Simisola the basics, the grounding ritual, how to listen to the drums not with ears, but with bones, how to distinguish between her own emotions and the weather of others. Simisola was a quick but playful learner, reminding Amina of her own lost childhood simplicity. Tund, in his solid, practical way, taught Simisola about the tangible world, the names of trees, the habits of fish, how to mend a net. "An oracle must know what she is speaking for," he'd say. "You cannot dance for the river if you do not know its currents." His role as a bridge between the mystical and the mundane became vital. He represented the virtue of grounding, the earth that holds the soaring tree. Just as a rhythm of recovery seemed possible, the ultimate test arrived. A wasting sickness, called the dry cough, swept through the region. It drained the moisture from the body, leaving victims desiccated. Herbs failed. It reached Ibir. Panic, a colder cousin of doubt, gripped the village. They turned to Amina. "Dance for a cure," they begged. "Dance the sickness away." Amina knew this was beyond a simple diagnostic dance. This was a confrontation with a force of negation. She prepared for 7 days, fasting and meditating. On the night of the dance, the entire sick and terrified village gathered. Baba Kofi's drums were a slow, struggling heartbeat. Amina danced the sickness. She convulsed with dry heaves, her movements became brittle. Her skin in the firelight looked parched. It was terrifying to watch. She was becoming a plague. Then, in the depth of the horrific dance, she shifted. She fell to the earth, her hands clawing at the soil. And then she began a different movement, a slow, insistent pushing upwards from the ground. She was a seed in a dry season, fighting. She was a root seeking the deep, forgotten water. Her dance became a story of relentless life fighting decay. She did not cure the sickness that night, but she gave the people a vision of resistance. She showed them they were not just victims, they were life itself, stubborn and seeking. The next day, inspired by her dance of the seeking root, old Yuwanda the midwife had an idea. She recalled a tuber that grew deep in the driest soil, a plant said to hold water in its belly. They dug for it, prepared it. It did not cure all, but it alleviated the symptoms, gave strength. The dance had not provided a magic cure, but it had reframed the problem, guiding them to the answer within their own land. It was the ultimate lesson. The oracle does not bring solutions from outside. She awakens the solution sleeping within the people. The toll on Amina was catastrophic. After the dance, she collapsed and did not rise for a moon. Her body was spent. Her spirit seemed distant. Simisola, guided by the Awo, performed her first public dance, a simple, hopeful dance for rain to cleanse the village. It was clumsy but pure, and the people accepted it with tearful gratitude. The torch was beginning, tremulously, to pass. During her recovery, Tund cared for her. He did not ask her to dance or speak or be the oracle. He simply was there, ensuring she drank broth, sitting with her in silence as the sun crossed the sky. His love was not for the gift, but for the woman broken by its service. He embodied the virtue of devotion, a quiet, steadfast force that asked for nothing in return. In his presence, Amina began the slow journey back to herself, not as a vessel, but as a person. As she regained strength, Amina made a momentous decision. She called the elders and the Awo. "I must go to the source," she announced. "Every river has its head spring. Every gift has its origin." She believed hers came from the sacred mountain Alyamo, 3 weeks' journey to the north, a place so ancient it was said to be the first land that rose from the waters. She needed to go there, not to ask for more power, but to give thanks, to lay down her burdens, and to understand the full cycle of her gift. It was a pilgrimage of closure and gratitude. The village, though fearful of her leaving, understood. This was the final movement of her dance. They prepared a caravan. Tund would lead, with Simisola, the Awo, and Duro, now a steadfast protector, as companions. The ritual of departure was one of blessing, not protection. The people showered her with petals of the flame of the forest tree, symbolizing a triumphant, glowing journey's end. The journey to Alyamo was a passage through the soul of the land. They walked through forests where monkeys chattered ancestral gossip, across savannas where the wind told old secrets, and into foothills where the air grew thin and clear. Amina grew stronger with each step, the weight of being the village's heart lifting with the distance. She taught Simisola along the way, pointing out how the energy of the land shifted, how to feel the pulse of different biomes underfoot. One night, camping under a sky ablaze with unfamiliar stars, the Awo, now very old and frail, spoke. "I will not see the mountain, children," he said peacefully. "My journey ends here, under this generous sky. My work was to tend the seed. You have grown into a forest. Remember, the gift was never yours to own, Amina. It is a breath the land loans you. You must exhale it back before you sleep." That night, he passed in his sleep. They buried him there, facing the North Star, a guide even in death. His passing was not a tragedy, but a completion, teaching the finality and peace of a life fully given. Reaching the slopes of Alyamo was like stepping into a cathedral of stone and silence. The air hummed with a profound, ancient energy. At the base of a sheer cliff, where a tiny ice-cold spring bubbled from the rock, the rumored headspring of all rivers in the region, Amina prepared for her final dance as the primary oracle. No drums were needed here. The mountain provided its own rhythm. The wind through crags, the drip of water. She danced. It was not a dance for others. It was a dance of release. She danced every major vision, every burden, every joy, letting them flow from her fingertips into the mountain air. She danced her love for Tund, her hope for Simisola, her gratitude for her village. She danced until she was empty, until she was just a woman standing on a mountain, breathing. Then she knelt and drank from a spring. The water tasted of origin, of clarity, of an end that is also a beginning. On the return journey, a transformed Amina walked beside Tund. Her step was lighter. Her gaze was present. She was no longer peering behind the veil of the future. She was fully in the golden light of the present. They spoke of simple things, building a house between the river and the village, of growing a garden, of growing old, watching Simisola's path unfold. She had relinquished the central role, not out of weakness, but out of supreme wisdom, knowing that to hold on too long is to stifle the new growth. When they arrived home, the village saw the change immediately. The piercing, prophetic intensity in her eyes was softened by a deep, settled peace. She was still Amina Ianfialua, but she was finally also just Amina. She embraced Simisola and presented her to the village. "The drum has a new dancer," she announced. "My feet will now walk quieter paths." The ceremony of transition was held at the next full moon. Simisola, now 12, received her own pair of anklet bells, forged from the same silver as Amina's, but with different symbols, the sprouting seed and the emerging star. Amina tied them on herself. Then, in a powerful symbolic act, Amina and Simisola danced together. Amina's dance was one of handing over, a gentle pushing of energy toward the girl. Simisola's dance was one of receiving, a gathering, a blossoming. Their movements wove together, then slowly, Amina's steps stilled, becoming supportive circles around Simisola's more central, vibrant motion. The transfer of responsibility was witnessed, blessed, and accepted by all. Amina then took her place among the elder women, not as the leader, but as the guide. Tund stood at the edge of the circle, his smile the warmest fire in the night. The village had learned its last great lesson, sustainability. A system that depends on one person is fragile. A community that nurtures the next generation is eternal. Years flowed like the Aluan. Simisola grew into her gift, developing her own style, more playful, more interactive, often having the villagers join in simple steps to feel the answer for themselves. Amina and Tund's home by the river became a place of wisdom and respite. Children, including their own two bright-eyed boys, played at her feet, and she told them stories not of prophecy, but of kindness, courage, and watching the clouds. Sometimes, on still nights, when a question was particularly delicate, Simisola would come to her. They would sit, not as teacher and student, but as fellow travelers. Amina would offer not visions, but the virtue of experience, the wisdom of how to carry the weight, how to separate self from service, how to love and still be the oracle. Her guidance was now in words, warm and weathered, not in dance. The final time Amina danced in the square was on the day her first grandchild was named. It was not a formal oracle dance. It was a celebration. Baba Kofi, now gray-bearded but still powerful, played a joyous, foundational rhythm. Amina, her hair silver, her movement slower but infinitely graceful, took the center. She danced a dance of the full circle, of birth, life, harvest, and rest. She danced the story of Iber, of a stranger's bargain, of healing and pilgrimage. Her feet, which once wrote the future in dust, now wrote a blessing of continuity on the earth. As she finished, Simisola placed the crying infant in her arms. Amina held the child up to the moon, a silent prayer for a life of its own choices, its own dances. The proverb lived. A society grows great when old men plant trees whose shade they know they shall never sit in. She had planted a forest of understanding, and now she sat in its dappled, gentle shade. So, children of dust and dawn, the fire is now embers, and my old voice grows thin. Remember the tale of the dancing oracle. The answer is not a rope to pull fate closer. It is a dance to join, so that you and the future may learn each other's steps. Amina's greatest teaching was not in her most dramatic prophecy, but in her wise surrender, in her understanding that the dance must always continue, but the dancers must change. When you face your own crossroads, do not just seek a seer. Listen with your feet. Feel the drum of your own heart. Consult the ancestors in the wisdom of your elders and the memory in your blood. Be brave enough to dance your question, patient enough to understand the answer that rises from your own movement, and humble enough to pass the rhythm on. For the story never ends. It only finds new feet to carry it, new voices to sing it, around fires yet to be lit. Now go, carry this story, and may your own path be a graceful dance between what is given, what is chosen, and what is gloriously lived. Listen, the embers are soft ash now, and the baobab's shadow stretches long. The old griot's tale of Amina and the dancing dust is complete, but your story is just beginning. Remember, the greatest wisdom is not just heard, it is shared. Do not let this fire die here. Become a storyteller. Follow this channel, where the ancestral fire always burns. Ring the bell so you never miss when a new tale is kindled. Share this story with one person whose spirit needs its lesson. In the comments below, speak the name of the virtue you most need to dance with right now. Is it patience? Discernment? Let this community be our village square. The drum is past. The story lives in you now. Subscribe, and let us walk the path of wisdom together. I have spoken.